I'm Heather Herrick, Department Coordinator for the Marine Science Department at the University of Texas. I'm here this afternoon with Jace Tunnell, Director of the Mission Aranasas National Estuarine Research Reserve. That's a bit of a mouthful, so we usually just call it the reserve, or we use the acronym NERR or NERR. We're going to chat a little bit about the reserve and then talk about plastics in the ocean. Jace, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. First, will you tell us a little bit about the Mission Aranasas NERR?
So the Mission Aranasas Research Reserve is one of actually 29 reserves around the country. And what makes the reserve system unique is that we all use the same methodology for going out and doing research, and we use the same equipment. So you can really compare what's going on here in Texas to anywhere else in the country. And we are all about education and research within estuaries.
Very cool. Can you give us a quick summary of your job as director of the NERR?
So the reserve has 20 staff, full-time and part-time. And so really I manage staff and create a vision forward for different types of projects that we do within the estuary. And so we have a number of different types of projects, anywhere from public engagement to research for water quality or fisheries, and even with land stewardship of working with landowners.
Very cool. One of the projects I know you work on has to do with nurdles. So will you tell us what is a nurdle?
So a nurdle is a tiny plastic pellet, and they measure smaller than 5 millimeters, and they are the basis for everything plastic. So you think about the utensils that we get whenever we go to a fast food restaurant, or our computers, or even our car dashboards. That was first a small plastic pellet that has then been melted down, added color to, and made into its final product.
I think it's easy for people to see and understand why bigger plastic trash is a problem in the ocean. We can see the turtles eat plastic bags. We can see animals get tangled up in fishing line, or those 6-pack rings get caught on animals. But why would these teeny tiny pieces of plastic like nurdles be a problem?
There's a couple of different reasons why these nurdles are problems. One is, of course, anything that's smaller is available to smaller things in the food chain, right? So you think of birds, sea turtles, fish, things like that that you see in the water or along the shoreline where these little plastic pellets are washing up. So when they eat these, there is no nutritional value. And so when they eat them, they could actually starve to death if they eat enough of them. They can also clog their intestinal tract. And so that normal food that they get their diet from can't pass through. The other bad thing is that these act like sponges for absorbing harmful chemicals. And so you think of the PCBs, DDTs, PAHs, these are all, things that are in our light fixtures or in our cars and stuff like that, that you don't want on your skin. You definitely don't want them in your body. And we don't want that for the animals either, because there are negative impacts for these chemicals.
Have there been any issues of people eating fish or other animals eating fish and having issues with any of those chemicals?
So that is what the current research is doing right now. And so to date, we don't know whether the nurdles being eaten, if those chemicals that have been absorbed into the nurdles, are they leaching out beyond the stomach lining of, say, a fish, and then we're eating the fish muscle tissue? We don't currently know that, but there are studies going on now because the equipment is now available for us to be able to detect those types of things happening. So I would think that in the next 2 to 3 years, we'd probably have an answer to that.
Well, that seems like something very important that we would be interested in knowing for certain. Can you tell us what the Nurdle Patrol is?
So Nurdle Patrol is a citizen science project that we started up to be able to figure out where these plastic pellets are coming from. And so in Texas, it's not uncommon for someone to go to the beach, spend 10 minutes of searching the shoreline, and find anywhere from 10 to even 100 nurdles within that 10-minute period. And so we wanted to know, where are these things coming from, with the idea that within that 10-minute period, whenever you find really high concentrations of plastic pellets, that might be an indication of where the pellets are coming from. And so we started this citizen science project up where people can go out for those 10 minutes. Then they can go to nurdlepatrol.org into a reporting form, put how many nurdles they found, and their information will automatically show up on this data map. And so it will be a point that it's color coded depending on their concentration that they found. And it really is helping to find where the higher concentrations are and possible sources.
What a cool way to collect data, and what a cool way for regular people to get involved in science.
Absolutely. That's a simple thing about it. A lot of people are going to the beach already, or people are looking around river shorelines, lake shorelines, and they're finding them there. And so because people like to recreate around the water, they're there already. Why not spend 10 minutes and search for little plastic pellets?
For sure. So can someone who lives in Austin or Dallas or somewhere far away from the coast and might only visit once or twice a year join the Nurdle Patrol as well?
Absolutely. We actually have a lot of groups inland that are, 6 hours from the coast, and yet they're still finding nurdles on tributaries, rivers, and even in lakes around their area. So if they have a plastic manufacturing company, or they have a plastic distributor, or even railroads that transport these plastic pellets, there can be losses of the plastic pellets all along the way. And so if you look up in, say, the Dallas area, in a 10-minute period, you can look on the map and the dot is red, which means over 100 plastic pellets are being found in that 10-minute period. So yeah, Austin, Dallas, any of these places that have anything to do with handling of plastic pellets, there's going to be some there.
I didn't realize you could look around rivers for nurdles. I might have to go nurdle patrolling now around the rivers in Austin.
Everybody should do that.
For sure, for sure. What can we do aside from hunting for nurdles to help minimize plastics in the oceans and rivers?
Well, so if you think about how we're finding these plastic pellets, and we're probably going to be finding more and more because the demand for plastic is increasing. And so if you look at the projections, 10 years out, we're going to almost double the amount of plastic that we're making now. So what we can do in our own homes is reduce the amount of plastic that we use. And the easy ones to do is, take your reusable grocery bags to the grocery store. Don't use straws. Don't drink out of water bottles. Do everything that's reusable. So if there's less demand, that means less production of plastic pellets, and the less likely that pellets will get out into the environment.
Sure, sure. Doubling of plastic, that just seems insane. It's a lot. Jace, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Is there anything else you'd like for everybody to know about the Nurdle Patrol, about the NERR? Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Well, I just say we've have over 2,500 volunteers around the country now that have sent data into the nurdlepatrol.org with over 7,300 surveys completed. Wow. And even if somebody goes out and they don't find any and they put a 0 into that database, that's information that we can use, because that means that's probably not a source of plastic pellets. But the more information we have, the better idea we have of where these things are coming from. So I'd suggest everybody get involved and go out and do a survey near them.
Great.